Ex-business partner tried to force me out by spreading false rumors to our clients. The libel lawsuit made him wish he hadn't. Starting a business with your best friend seems like a dream come true until it becomes your worst nightmare. We had been buddies since college, roommates for 3 years, and when we graduated, we decided to pool our savings and start our own company. The first 2 years were incredible. We were making decent money, had steady clients, and our friendship seemed stronger than ever. But success has a way of changing people, and I learned that lesson the hard way when everything fell apart. The trouble started when we landed our biggest contract yet, a project that would triple our monthly revenue and establish us as serious players in our industry. Suddenly, my partner became obsessed with control, questioning every decision I made and second-guessing ideas that had worked perfectly in the past. He started showing up late to meetings, making excuses about why certain tasks weren't completed, and worst of all, he began taking credit for work that was clearly mine. The atmosphere in our small office became toxic, filled with tension and unspoken resentment that made every day feel like walking through a minefield. Things escalated when he suggested we restructure our partnership agreement during what I thought would be a routine business meeting. He wanted to become the majority owner, claiming he was doing more work and bringing in more clients than I was. This was completely false. Our detailed records showed we were contributing equally to both the workload and client acquisition, but he insisted on having the final say in all major decisions. When I refused to sign the new agreement, he became hostile, accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful for everything he had supposedly done for the business. The friendship that had lasted over a decade was crumbling before my eyes, and I felt powerless to stop it. We had shared everything growing up, from college struggles to family problems, and now he was treating me like an enemy. The conversations that used to flow naturally became awkward confrontations, and I found myself dreading going to work every morning. The office that had once been our sanctuary became a battlefield where every interaction felt calculated and hostile. What happened next completely blindsided me and changed everything I thought I knew about human nature. I started noticing that our clients were acting strangely during meetings. Some seemed hesitant to move forward with projects. Others asked weird questions about my reliability and commitment to the business. At first, I thought it was just normal client concerns or maybe industry rumors, but the pattern became too obvious and consistent to ignore. 3 of our biggest clients suddenly canceled their contracts within a single week, citing vague concerns about working with us. The devastating truth came out during a casual conversation with one of our former clients at a networking event downtown. He mentioned that my partner had called him personally, warning him about my alleged drinking problem and claiming I was unstable and unreliable. According to my partner, I was supposedly showing up to work intoxicated and making dangerous decisions that could harm their projects and put their own businesses at risk. None of this was true. I rarely drink and have never had substance abuse issues, but the damage was already done and spreading like wildfire. I was absolutely furious, not just because of the lies, but because someone I trusted like a brother had systematically destroyed my reputation to steal our business. The betrayal cut deeper than any professional setback could, reaching into the core of who I thought I was and what I believed about loyalty and friendship. I confronted him immediately, demanding an explanation and hoping there was some misunderstanding, but he denied everything and acted shocked that I would accuse him of such behavior. His fake innocence made my blood boil, especially since I had proof of his lies through multiple client testimonials. Within 2 weeks, I had lost 6 major clients, and our monthly revenue dropped by 70%, leaving us barely able to cover our basic expenses. My partner was thriving while I was struggling to keep my head above water, working 16-hour days to try to salvage what remained of our client base. He even had the audacity to suggest I should sell him my shares at a heavily discounted rate, since the business was clearly failing under my leadership. That's when I realized this had been his calculated plan all along, to systematically destroy my credibility and force me out of our partnership. The realization hit me like a physical blow, making me question everything I thought I knew about our friendship and partnership. How long had he been planning this betrayal? Had our entire relationship been a lie, just a convenient arrangement until he could figure out how to get rid of me? The questions tormented me during sleepless nights, and I found myself replaying every conversation and interaction from the past months, looking for signs I had missed. I spent countless sleepless nights researching my options, consulting with various legal professionals, and gathering evidence of his defamatory statements. Every client conversation was meticulously documented, every email was saved and backed up, and I even managed to get a few clients to provide written statements about what my partner had told them. The evidence was overwhelming, showing a clear and undeniable pattern of intentional lies designed to harm my reputation and business interests. The process of building my case was emotionally exhausting, forcing me to relive the betrayal over and over again. Each piece of evidence I uncovered revealed another layer of deception, another calculated move in his scheme to destroy me. I discovered that he had been badmouthing me to clients for months, planting seeds of doubt about my competence and reliability while positioning himself as the stable, trustworthy partner. The moment I filed the libel lawsuit, everything changed in ways I never expected. My partner's cocky attitude disappeared instantly when he received the court papers, and he started calling me frantically, begging me to drop the case. He claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that he never meant to hurt me, and that we could work things out like old friends. But it was too late for apologies. The damage to my reputation and finances was already done, and I was determined to see justice served. His desperate attempts to reconcile were pathetic and infuriating at the same time. He would show up at my apartment unannounced, crying and pleading for forgiveness, claiming that stress and jealousy had driven him to make terrible decisions. He even tried to involve our mutual friends, asking them to convince me to drop the lawsuit and give him another chance. But I had crossed a line mentally, and there was no going back to the way things were. The discovery process was fascinating and terrifying at the same time, revealing the true extent of his betrayal. My partner had been incredibly sloppy about covering his tracks, leaving a digital trail of emails and text messages that proved his malicious intent beyond any reasonable doubt. He had been planning this sabotage for months, gradually building relationships with our clients while simultaneously undermining my credibility behind my back. The extent of his betrayal was even worse than I had imagined in my darkest moments. What shocked me most was discovering that he had been documenting our private conversations, looking for ammunition to use against me in court. He had recorded phone calls where I expressed frustration about difficult clients or complained about business challenges, then taken these conversations completely out of context to support his lies. The violation of trust was so complete and thorough that I felt physically sick reading through his evidence and realizing how long he had been planning my downfall. The legal battle lasted 8 long months, during which our business completely collapsed under the weight of our conflict. Neither of us could focus on client work while fighting in court, and our remaining clients fled to avoid being caught in the crossfire of our dispute. The irony was bitter and poetic. My partner's scheme to steal the business had ultimately destroyed it entirely, leaving us both with nothing but legal bills and shattered reputations. During this period, I learned more about the legal system than I ever wanted to know. The depositions were grueling, forcing me to relive every painful moment of our partnership's collapse while lawyers grilled me about every detail. I had to provide evidence for every claim, document every conversation, and prove that his lies had directly caused my financial losses. The process was expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally draining, but I was determined to see it through to the end. My partner tried every dirty trick in the book to avoid responsibility for his actions. He claimed I was mentally unstable, that I had imagined the whole conspiracy, and that his client conversations were just innocent expressions of concern for our business. His lawyers argued that business partnerships naturally involve disagreements, and that I was overreacting to normal competitive behavior within our industry. They even tried to countersue me for harassment and defamation, claiming I was the one spreading lies. The audacity of his defense strategy was breathtaking, but it also revealed his true character in ways I had never seen before. He was willing to lie under oath, fabricate evidence, and destroy what remained of our friendship to avoid taking responsibility for his actions. Watching him in court was like seeing a stranger wearing my best friend's face, someone I didn't recognize and certainly didn't respect. The breakthrough came when one of our former clients agreed to testify in court, providing the smoking gun evidence we needed. This particular client had recorded his phone conversation with my partner, capturing him explicitly lying about my supposed drinking problem and urging the client to terminate our contract immediately. The recording was damning evidence that proved everything I had been claiming, and it completely undermined my partner's defense strategy in spectacular fashion. Hearing that recording played in court was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. My former best friend's voice filled the courtroom, spreading lies about me with such conviction that I almost believed them myself. The jury's faces showed their disgust and disbelief as they listened to him deliberately destroying my reputation for his own gain. It was the moment I knew we were going to win, but it was also the moment I truly understood how deeply he had betrayed me. During the trial, watching my former best friend lie under oath was one of the most painful experiences I've ever endured. He maintained his innocence despite overwhelming evidence, spinning elaborate stories about how his words had been misunderstood and taken out of context. The jury looked skeptical from the beginning, and I could see them growing more annoyed with each obvious lie he told. His performance was so unconvincing that even his own lawyers seemed embarrassed by his testimony. The trial revealed other shocking details about his character that I had never suspected. He had been secretly meeting with our competitors, sharing confidential information about our business strategies and client relationships. He had also been inflating his own contributions to our success while downplaying mine, creating a false narrative that he was the real brains behind our operation. The depth of his deception was staggering and went far beyond what I had originally discovered. The verdict came back in my favor, awarding me damages that covered not only my lost income, but also substantial punitive damages for the malicious nature of his actions. The judge was particularly harsh in his remarks, stating that my partner's behavior represented a serious breach of fiduciary duty and that his lies had caused irreparable harm to my professional reputation. The financial award was substantial, but it couldn't restore the friendship we had lost or undo the emotional damage he had caused. The moment the verdict was read, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that justice had been served, satisfaction that my version of events had been vindicated, but also sadness for the friendship that had been destroyed. My partner looked devastated, finally understanding the full consequences of his actions, but it was too late for remorse. The damage had been done, and there was no going back to the way things were. What followed was even more satisfying than the court victory itself. Word of the lawsuit spread quickly through our industry, and my partner found himself completely ostracized by potential clients and business partners. Nobody wanted to work with someone who had been proven to spread malicious lies about his own partner. His attempts to start a new business failed repeatedly as his reputation preceded him everywhere he went, making it impossible for him to rebuild his professional life. The twisted irony was that his plan had backfired spectacularly in ways he never could have imagined. Instead of forcing me out and taking over our successful business, he had destroyed both our careers and faced serious financial consequences that would affect him for years to come. The lawsuit had cost him more than just money. It had exposed him as someone who couldn't be trusted in any professional relationship. His reputation was permanently damaged in ways that would follow him for the rest of his career. 6 months after the trial ended, I ran into him at a coffee shop downtown, our first face-to-face encounter since the verdict. He looked defeated, exhausted, and genuinely remorseful for the first time since this whole ordeal began. He apologized profusely, admitting that his jealousy and greed had driven him to make terrible decisions that hurt both of us. But some betrayals are too deep to forgive, and our friendship was one of the casualties of his scheme that could never be repaired. The conversation was awkward and painful, filled with long silences and careful words. He told me about his struggles to find work, the financial problems he was facing, and how the lawsuit had affected his family relationships. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a larger part remembered the calculated cruelty of his actions and the months of lies he had told. Forgiveness might come someday, but it wouldn't be anytime soon. I eventually started over with a new business, using the settlement money as seed capital and drawing on the hard-won experience I had gained from our failed partnership. The legal battle had taught me valuable lessons about protecting myself and documenting everything in business relationships. My new venture was more successful than our original company had ever been, partly because I no longer had to deal with a sabotaging partner, and partly because I had learned to trust my instincts about people. Building the new business was therapeutic in many ways, allowing me to prove to myself that I could succeed on my own terms. Every client I gained, every successful project I completed, was evidence that my former partner had been wrong about my abilities. The confidence I had lost during our partnership's collapse slowly returned, stronger than before because it was based on my own achievements rather than shared success. The most unexpected consequence of this whole experience was how it changed my perspective on trust and friendship in fundamental ways. I became much more cautious about mixing personal relationships with business partnerships, and I learned to recognize the warning signs of someone whose values don't align with mine. The betrayal had been devastating, but it also made me stronger and more independent than I had ever been before, teaching me lessons that would serve me well for the rest of my life. Years later, I occasionally hear updates about my former partner through mutual acquaintances who still keep in touch with both of us. He eventually found work in a different industry, but never recovered the success he had enjoyed during our partnership. The lawsuit had followed him wherever he went, making it impossible for him to rebuild his professional reputation to its former level. Sometimes I feel a twinge of pity for him, but then I remember the calculated cruelty of his actions and the feeling passes quickly. Looking back, I realized that filing the lawsuit was about more than just money or revenge, though both played a role in my decision. It was about standing up for myself and refusing to let someone destroy my reputation without facing consequences for their actions. Too many people let bullies and manipulators get away with their behavior because confronting them seems too difficult or expensive. But sometimes fighting back is the only way to protect yourself and prevent them from hurting others in the future. The whole experience taught me that friendship and business don't always mix well, especially when money and success are involved in significant amounts. People can change in ways you never expect, and sometimes the person you trust most becomes your greatest enemy. But it also showed me that justice is possible when you have the courage to fight for it, even when the odds seem stacked against you and the process seems overwhelming. Today, I'm grateful for the painful lessons I learned during that dark period of my life, though I wouldn't wish the experience on anyone. The betrayal hurt tremendously, but it also forced me to become more resilient and self-reliant than I ever thought possible. Sometimes the worst experiences in life teach us the most important lessons, and this was definitely one of those times for me. The scars remain, but they've made me wiser and stronger than I was before.